I'm Jeffrey Spalding. I'm the artistic director here at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Calgary. And we are delighted that you are all here for the two exhibitions. But at this stage, our main event, as it were, is the wonderful opportunity to have a tour of the Cahen illustration exhibition with its curator and author of the catalog, Jaleen Grove. And Jaleen is a preeminent scholar of Canadian illustration. She is a doctoral fellow at Stony Brook University, and is the person most responsible for bringing all of these wonderful works together. And so it is a great pleasure for the Museum of Contemporary Art to host this exhibition, but especially to welcome you to have this opportunity to have you tour our guests around the show. So, Jaleen.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is a real privilege to be here, and it's a privilege. Thank you, Jeffrey, for having Oscar Cahen's illustration work in A, an art gallery, B, a contemporary art gallery. This is unusual. I doubt any of you have ever seen illustration made for press, made for a commercial product, as a commercial product, in a contemporary art gallery, and I'll just say those of you older than me. You probably never thought you'd see one for a lifetime. I was wondering for myself. Because for a long time, illustration was not considered to be art, right? Because it was made for somebody else. It was considered, particularly through the 1950s and 60s and 70s, that if you made it for money, then somehow your personal vision must be compromised. Well, as we can see here, Oscar Cahen put a lot of himself into his illustration. In fact, he was most illustrators. That's a whole other lecture I won't go into here. I'll stick on Oscar. So he was a very self-directed person. That's partly because of his background. His father was an eminent Catholic scholar. He could speak several languages, highly educated man, worked in the diplomatic service in Germany, Weimar Republic. Not because he was Jewish, went on the bad side as soon as Hitler came into power. But he did see to it that his only son got a very classical education and very good, high and philosophical fixed education. And then Oscar, because he was really into art, studied at the Dresden Academy of Art, which was a very prestigious place where, excuse me, I'm on my third lecture today, so I'm going to drop names crazy, but we'll come back to that. Anyways, he had a strong academic background as an artist, but also was in Germany at the point where caricature was a very important influence, and there was German Expressionism, and his father was a published author, in fact, in some of the Expressionist art journals, such as Jack Jones. So he was brought up with that sensibility that a responsible artist in society is connecting with society, is critiquing society, is challenging himself to move ahead and keep changing it up. So that's what you're going to see here is very little consistency style-wise across the booth that's represented on the walls here. This is not the mark of an immature artist. This is the mark of a serious artist who's not going to get pigeonholed, not even by commercial art, and certainly not by art, which at that time was, you probably all heard this phrase, the cohesive body of work. Every painting looks the same, variations on the same author's like, screw that, I'm not doing it. So challenged himself, and I'll point out different mediums that he's using to get across different messages, different ways of approaching things, brings in that language of caricature very often to make fun of things that were considered sort of sacred cows of Canadian culture. So let's begin here with a Zoom picture here. This is actually a student piece. He's in the early 30s. Well, he's still a student at Dresden. And here he's used an aerographic sprayer, which is fancy name for an airbrush. It's been recently invented, so we've seen very avant-garde use of these materials. You can also see with the lettering on an angle like this, there's that data influence that is coming through very heavily in Eastern European poster design at that time, concentrating just on two colors here, black and red, so it would be economical to print on a press, to go to press. So a strong graphic sensibility and really pushing the medium. At the same time, just a little bit later, we're dating these pieces to 1939, at this point still in Europe. Could have been in Czechoslovakia at this point. He's doing some interesting kind of scenes here, obviously from the movie set. This is the movie camera stack, and here MGM on this girl's shirt. He's in Europe. They look very American. right? We've got quintessential glamour girls that were staples of American mass media and entertainment at that time. We've got a cowboy up here. So I've run across lots of other references to American popular culture in the visual culture of Europe at that time. They were watching really closely what was going on in America because it was starting to, boom, right? The American dream was coming true as Americans starting to take over the world. And in Germany, they were very intrigued by things like Disney, right? Like, they love Mickey Mouse over there. They love Charlie Chaplin. So just coming into the popular culture, we got that sort of set up as part of the visual vocabulary. So the show is not set up chronologically, so we're going to do a bunch of walking, because I'm going to talk a little bit chronologically. So come down here with me. What happens is Oscar, because he has this Jewish background, he has to flee as well. His father was very active in the resistance and had already fled, in fact, and was being a political activist and an underground agitator against Hitler. Writes a book called Men Against Hitler, and of course now, his head's on the line. So he's disappeared. Oscar and his mother are in Czechoslovakia. They get taken to England through, there was sort of a rescue group or organization in England to take artists of Jewish descent out of Europe to England. So that's where he and his mother went. He was there briefly, and then guess what? Because he's got German citizenship, England says, he's got German citizenship, let's put him in jail. So they rounded up everybody that they considered to be, not English enough, and made them prisoners of war. So he was in England, incarcerated there. They put a bunch of them on boats, sent half to Australia, half to Canada. Oscar did not know which country his boat was going to until they pulled up in St. Lawrence. So he went, Canada. And was promptly put into a prison camp in Sherbrooke, Quebec, where he was for a better part of 2 years. But through his talents and some smartness about media, when a woman who became a friend of his came to do a story on the inmates of the prison camp, he made sure that he was the one that she got to meet. They had a little romance. And that got him some publicity, got him some work, so he began freelancing while he's still in jail. He was so good that they brought him out. And first works he was doing was, the war is still on, it's 1942, moving in, and he's, of course, called upon to do things that would reflect the war effort at the time. This actually might be a little bit later, but it's bringing aid, and it's actually made as a magazine cover for a little small format magazine called Magazine Digest. And he's bringing something very different from what the Canadians had already, which was very strong kind of New York-based sensibility, because Canadian illustrators typically took their training at the Art Students League, and if they could afford it, they go to France, so did the American artists. And so Oscar's bringing something different. He's bringing that German expressionist background and that training and sensibility from Czech posters to meet with an American fans. So I'm down here. All right. When the war is over, he goes to Toronto to see the art editor for Magazine Digest, which that picture was for, and he begins doing more work for other magazines. And we hit this really interesting point in the late 40s. In 1947, there was already in place Liberty magazine, which was an American magazine, but they were split runs to kind of cope with Canadian tariff system. So there was a Canadian version of Liberty magazine. In 1947, the Americans sold their part of it to a Canadian, so it became fully Canadian. At that point, they picked up a new art director, and that art director was into experimentation. So he started hiring illustrators like Oscar who would do stuff like this. This is completely different from Norman Rockwell, which you're all familiar with what that looks like, right? So Oscar and a few other illustrators are brought on at Liberty to do this kind of thing. Again, that German expressionist thing coming in there, he's really exaggerating with the length of that arm, the way these feet are, almost cartoony, angularity brought out, sort of horrific faces. The story is sort of about a man who's had very tragic circumstance, actually a Twain story. And Liberty starts publishing all this stuff, and readers are outraged. People are always kind of once in a while remarking on the illustrations in the magazines and letters to the editor, and occasionally you'll see someone, pops up as they like this illustrator, they didn't like that because somebody got, the wrong button on the uniform of some Civil War guy. People were fact-checking illustration all the time. Oscar comes along, and they're like, what's that? So people call this ghoulish. They say it's disgusting. They say, if things continue this way, we're going to have nothing but surrealism in our pages. This is horrible. I cancel my subscription. It was a big fit. It really was a challenge for many Canadians at that point. Our editors said, well, fine, see you later. We're going to continue running this stuff. And they did. And now that I've had a chance, actually, just in the last couple of months, to look at what else they were publishing along with this, I realized that this was a real crucial moment in Canadian graphic art history where the established visual culture got challenged. And with things like this, and people like Ed McNally and Bruce Johnson and Mike Mitchell and Harold Town, who's a close friend of Oscar's, all began doing this crazy avant-garde illustration. And the reason is because at that moment, what's just come out, right? If you know your Canadian cultural policy history, the Massey Commission. Right? So Vincent Massey has just done this big, long federal government study on Canadian art and culture, and said, we're in trouble because we've got the elephant to the south and it's sitting on us, and we need to do something different. And he had the art editor's ear, and they said, yeah, let's do something different. Let's support our own guys, and let's not always copy the American example. So this kind of breaks open this ability to start printing in Canadian magazines that everybody has on their coffee table, something totally whacked and different. So it's not always challenging stuff.
We are so delighted to greet you all here tonight, and we are honored that you've come to spend this evening with us. I want to acknowledge and pass on all those kind thoughts from the many members of our Board of Governors who are here in attendance, and I hope that you'll have a chance to chat with them. We had, most of you, of course, were already here when Jaleen Grove, the curator of the Cahen exhibition, gave a very delightful and informative tour of the exhibition. I want to thank Jaleen for that fabulous opportunity on behalf of MOCA, but also to acknowledge Michael Cahen, who is with us here. Michael is the son of Oscar Cahen, and okay, how about that? And then put period after that, and then stop for a second, and then just say, if anyone who is a creative person has to have someone look after their legacy, look after their kindness and their what the world might think thereafter, you couldn't get a better and more wonderful patriot than Michael Cahen. Michael has poured his heart and his enormous energy into remembering the work of his father. And many of you in this room will know that Oscar Cahen was a revered abstract painter and driving force in Painters 11, the abstract painting group. But at his untimely death at the age of 40 in 1956 in a car accident, Oscar the illustrator was the famous guy. He was the one that people waited week by week to see the next episode. So we are delighted. As it turns out, we have two premier exhibitions tonight. We did them because we thought the exhibitions were just interesting. But as it turns out, they're actually premieres. That's pretty darn nice. This exhibition, Oscar Cahen, the illustrative work, was organized by Illustration House in New York and was the first solo exhibition of Oscar's work as an illustrator in a museum context. And that was fantastic. As it turns out, this is the first time a Canadian art museum has shown the solo work of Oscar Cahen, illustrator. So we're proud of it, but also kind of shake our head, because as I had a chance to say earlier, Oscar Cahen defined what the 50s meant to Canada and defined who we were as we made our move from a rural and British colony to a new nation that was urban and urbane. So we are absolutely delighted to have this opportunity. The work's just sensational, they're beautiful, and need really no more introduction than we've already provided. Except I am a museum director, and I do have a job. And there is a absolutely beautiful
fully illustrated catalog that has each and every one of the illustrations illustrated in color with a wonderful essay by Jaleen, and I hope that you will be compelled to take a handful of them away.